listening to The Gender Rebels.
I'm Kathleen, a cis woman and ally.
And I'm Faith, a trans woman.
Gender Rebels is a question and answer podcast that explores life outside the gender binary.
A big thanks to our Patreon supporters.
If you'd like to support the show, go to patreon.com/genderrebels. Hey Faith, we got a listener question.
Yay!
Yay! This one comes from Lee. Thanks, Lee.
Hey, Lee.
I'm a non-binary person in their late 30s who only just recently learned that neither is a gender option, and with hindsight identified this is a probable cause for my lifelong gender discomfort. Lee says, I had an idea of what binary transness meant, and I knew it wasn't that, so I figured I must be the other thing, the non-binary transness. So Lee's question is for me. What does it feel like to be cis?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I don't know what it feels like to be cis.
Well, what does it feel like to be trans?
Well, I can actually describe that in words. I can put that in words.
Okay.
It's basically like being cis, except that you add on a delicious, creamy layer of dissatisfaction with your gender and a longing for a better gender.
Okay.
And so you, just add that smack of unhappiness and that sort of obsession with, being the right gender.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So otherwise it's just like cis. Just that creamy, creamy layer of pure, creamy, dysphoric goodness.
So that's the thing. Like, it's, and when I first got Lee's question and I responded to Lee, I was like, I'm not sure if you meant that as a joke, but I'm going to try to answer it because it's kind of interesting. Because, like, what does it feel like to be gay? Well, what does it feel like to be straight? I saw a dialogue online once that someone asked a dwarf, what does it feel like to be a dwarf? And the guy was like, I don't know, man. What does it feel like to not be a dwarf? Like,
I used to think about this. Like, I grew up kind of army family, so we were moving around constantly.
Yeah.
So I never got to live in the same place. I never got to go to school for more than a couple years, and I never had friends for more than a couple years.
Yeah.
Whereas I was like, oh my god, what is it like to just live in one town forever and have your cousins be there and your grandma's there and your friends who you've known since kindergarten? And then I remember having someone ask me, like, who had been in that situation, like, wow, what's it like to move around? And I'm like, I don't know, what's it like to stay? Like, it's each of us has a unique experience. We have a unique way of looking at the world.
Right.
And the universe that really hasn't been seen ever before.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, I could ask, what's it like to be Kath? What's it like to be Lee? What's it like to be me?
Yeah.
We get philosophical. If you guys tuned in for Gender Rebels this week, sorry, we're doing Philosophy Rebels.
Yes, gender philosophy.
Yeah.
With the Gender Rebels. Well, so I feel like probably the best way to answer the question is to sort of start out talking about what it's not like how it's different from what I understand the trans or non-binary experience is. And I feel like that might kind of get us kind of close to what it is, what cis is. And I think it's like you're saying, the kids who never moved around a lot.
Yeah.
Probably rich kids versus poor kids, white people versus black people, males versus females. Like, you just live your experience, but you learn from those other people how things are probably different for them, and that's when you get to start to see what it's like.
I think a way I might describe being cis. Do you like how I'm describing cis?
Sure, answer the question.
Is not being full, not being hungry, but just not even noticing that your stomach is totally fine. That point where you're like, I'm not hungry, I'm just fine.
So it's the absence of desire or unhappiness or sensation. Really. It's the absence of need. Or in this case, probably more like the absence of stress or confusion or fear of your family abandoning you.
Yeah.
Fear of reprisal. Fear of never looking the way that you wish you looked. My life is absent those stresses.
Yes.
I never had to worry about being mammed or sirred in the wrong way. Although, like, the one or two times it happened to me, it did bother me a lot.
When were you sirred?
I was trying to get quotes on a 3D printer from India, and I think they just assumed I was a sir, and they kept calling me sir, and they were like, really, really polite. So it was sir all over the place.
Your voice
I wasn't on the phone.
Deep.
This was just email.
Oh, it was email.
Yeah.
Kathleen. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know.
I love when people email me and I can't determine their gender from their name, and I have to be like, because I can't be like dear Ms., dear Mister. I have to be like dear Steve or something.
Right.
And when it's like, and sometimes you can't tell if it's a last name or a first name.
Oh gosh, that's when I just use both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes. So in general, I haven't been the recipient of people's confusion in that way. And that's nice. That is one less source of stress. I never had to worry about family rejection for this reason, getting fired for this reason. I never had to worry about, I feel like this is a huge stressor, worrying about the money involved.
Yeah.
In a lot of things that are necessary in transition. Doctors being anything less than professional. I never had to worry about that. On the other hand, if I'm going to try to hazard a guess from my cis point of view of some of the things I missed out on a deeper understanding, a lived understanding of how our culture regards gender.
Mm-hmm.
I just fell into one of the predetermined slots, which is great for me. It made my life a lot easier, but is, then there's stuff I don't have to worry about, so I don't have to think about. So I lack a lot of the insight and the wisdom and the life experience that you and a lot of our listeners have. Now, that isn't particularly pleasant that you have to have
I was about to equate that to I, unlike a cancer patient, I lack an in-depth understanding of really how hospitals work.
Yes. I've never puked from a chemotherapy session. And so there's some knowledge there. There's some lived experience there. Now, people don't tweet at us that Faith just compared being transgender to having cancer. Don't tweet at us. You know what she meant. Be cool. There's a struggle. There is a triumph. There is something you've overcome. You've learned bad things about some people and great things about other people who either supported you or were fuckers. I don't have that. I'm kind of glad I don't have that. I mean, that level of naivete is worth the absence of stress that is the quote-unquote price I've had to pay for that.
So basically, we've gotten this far and we've come up with being trans sucks.
Yeah.
So
being cis is
doesn't,
not shitty. It's really not shitty at all. Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty much what it boils down to, is there is information. There is stuff that would be good to know, but without having lived it, and on some level experienced what is very real trauma of having lived it, then I will never know those things. 100 times while recording this show, I have asked you, what are the things I've done wrong? What are the things I shouldn't have said?
Yeah.
What are the bad ways? What are the unsupportive ways? I make those mistakes because I'm not in it.
Yeah.
And I wish I didn't make those mistakes. I guess that's all I have on that. I don't know. What it's like to be cis. You know what it is? Here's the huge, big, fat, ugly privilege that goes along with cis. I get to choose whether or not I want to know about what's involved in being a trans person, the struggle of the trans person, the difficulties. That's up to me if I want to know that. Most cis people don't have to, don't want to, and don't. They never have to. And trans people must be acutely aware, not only of the trans experience, but of the cis experience, because that's the bulk of the people you'll be dealing with. You have to be able to try to translate what you're thinking into the language that cis people have invented. You have to try to convince your cisgender doctors or your cisgender parents or your cisgender coworkers that this is a normal thing. That's on you. You have been put in an unenviable and unfair position of having to teach everyone. I don't have to teach everyone about why my gender is the way it is.
Yeah. I have a podcast for that.
You do?
So, yeah.
Oh, I like podcasts.
Oh, it's genderrebels.com. Check us out sometime.
I've heard of them. You know, I didn't...
If you've never listened to one of our episodes.
There's one. I listened to one and I just didn't like it very much.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's not for everyone.
No. Yes.
So, Lee, this is a hard question and illuminating. I think it says a lot about what the group in power doesn't know about the group that might be subject to their power.
Yeah, and you know, I identified what I called gender flux for a number of years, and that was kind of sort of non-binary, but it was more like I would be male, present male sometimes, present female sometimes. That's how I saw it. But I wasn't even fully non-binary because I knew in my heart that I was trans, and so even I, someone who lived a non-binary style life, doesn't know what it's really like to be non-binary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we would love to hear from you or from our other non-binary listeners. What's it like to be non-binary? What does that feel like? Also, we have a couple episodes with Avery that go into that a little bit.
Yeah, that must be really tricky because I can imagine being like, okay, well, trans. I must be trans because I don't feel right in this one gender, so I must be trans. But then you have to like double realize that I'm not only cis, I'm neither cis nor trans. I am non-binary, and some people might choose to identify non-binary and trans, but just using those as different terms.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what it's like to be cis either, Lee, and Kath does, but she doesn't know what it's like to be trans, and neither of us knows what it's like to be non-binary, and I don't know what it's like to not be able to walk.
And the thing is, like, it's partly a failing of language, it's partly how we're limited in our language, but it's also, even if we had the perfect language that was perfectly clear to everyone else and unambiguous in its definitions, it's still a lived experience thing. You can never really know. There's a question that was posed to us in neurophilosophy of the world's leading researcher in color perception and vision is a colorblind woman. Does she know what it is to see red? She doesn't. She knows all the facts about everything we've got about perceiving different colors, but she's never perceived red. She doesn't know it. Yeah. She can't know it. All we can do is try to help each other out, and the dominant group needs to be receptive to information from other groups.
Yeah, we should be. We always should be.
And this brings me to another kind of philosophical question I wanted to ask you.
Okay. We're getting deep on this episode.
This is heavy, guys.
We're very deep. Okay. Let's figure out our other philosophical question.
Yeah. All right. It's more of a thought experiment. Okay. But here's your thought experiment. Faith. When you were growing up and you didn't know transgender was a thing, before you saw a picture of RuPaul, your thinking, if I understand correctly, was something along the lines of, something is wrong, but I don't know what it is. I'm not gay, but I feel an affinity for their struggles.
Yeah.
On some level. I'm just not right, somehow. And then you learned about transgender, and you found transgender role models, and you learned about it, and you did your research, and here we are. And trans folk now have words and labels, and they have like checklists of what to do if they want to transition, and doctors to talk to, and there's TV shows and podcasts. For a while there, we, as sort of the general mainstream culture, didn't really have a concept of transgender people. Even in the 50s, there was maybe like ladyboys or crossdressers or whatever. But there was like a concept of what gay was.
Yeah.
So people in your position were not sure what was happening and trying to figure it out. I'm thinking about the next thing. Once being transgender has become as mainstream and as boring as being gay is, there's another group out there. There's another disenfranchised minority who can't figure out why they don't quite fit in and don't have the words and maybe don't even have the concepts. And I'm thinking about those people right now. What would your advice be for them? Or kind of correspondingly, what would you have advised 10-year-old Faith to do to kind of cope with this absence of information?
Well, we have the internet now.
We have the internet now.
I feel like someone, I don't know that there are any like undiagnosed, unnamed ideas out there.
I hope
everyone.
you're right.
I feel like everyone would have a website, but let's say it's in the future. Let's say it's in the future, and it's something with your nanites, or your, whatever it is that we don't quite have a language for, in the same way that like George Washington wouldn't have been able to really describe the kind of frustration I had the other day when we went up to Beacon, New York, and I left my phone at home, and that stress that kind of comes with that. George Washington would have no clue about that. So that may, it's possible in the future that some things about humans have always been the same. I'm sure there's always been people with gender dysphoria. There's always been people who identified, who wanted to be non-binary if they had the language. So I would question if we even have that. And let's say, in the future, there's something different, just something totally different. We can rewrite our DNA from scratch, and we become something else. What would I say to that 10-year-old who has that kind of itch that they don't know how to scratch because they don't know how to discover other people with that itch, so they think it's just them?
And there aren't words. There is no way to describe it.
I mean, I would say, well, first off, let me clarify this. I knew vaguely, I'd heard the phrase sex change operation before, but I didn't really know what that was. I grew up very evangelical, very tight-knit, kind of closed community.
Sure.
And yeah, it was like, I was like 10 or 11, and I saw RuPaul in Parade magazine. I was like, oh my God, this is a person who's doing this just because they want to do this.
Yeah.
And they're not coerced into it. They're not, there's no contrived thing about someone's dance partner being sick or something. It's like whatever reason some sitcom would have, or some movie, we're never going to win the soccer game unless you play with us or something.
Yeah.
Something stupid. So, yeah, I there were hints there. They were just vague hints, but I couldn't really, until it wasn't really the internet.
Yeah.
Which I was like 15 or 16, that I was really able to kind of discover there's other people out there. So I would say to 10-year-old itch kid, dysphoric in some way.
Confused, I
mean, we have gender
kid.
Dysphoria. This would be some sort of other dysphoria.
Yeah.
I will call it nano dysphoria for the purpose of this episode. So I would say to the nano dysphoric kid, you're probably not alone. People are not as unique as we think. We all are unique in that like sense that it's our brain and, it's not repeated, but our emotions and our challenges and things like that, we're really not unique in that case. We're all kind of dealing with the same programming.
And there's a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
There's people that are weird in the exact same way that you are weird.
And I think the internet showed us that.
Oh, thanks, internet.
Just the varieties of porn alone. So we can say, hey, nano kid, you're probably not alone.
Yes.
You're probably not the only person who feels this itch. You're not the only nano dysphoric out there. Mm-hmm. Find other people. Log on to the brain sphere or the internet or whatever, and look for others if you can. If not, write down your thoughts, write your feelings,
journal,
upload them to the Mind Link or whatever. It's the future.
Oh, in the future.
In the future.
Thank you.
Hyper store your mega thoughts onto the overdrive. Whatever you do in the future. I don't know. And keep that journal. Mm-hmm. Write this down. Figure that out, and look for, seek. That's what I would say. Seek.
Yeah.
Seek others like you, and you will find them. And when I was 14, I was born in 1980, which makes my age very easy to just track.
Must be nice.
So 80s, it was like 95, 96, and the internet really started to actually kind of exist. My first time going on the internet was probably 91, 92. And that was like Prodigy or CompuServe or Telnet even. You guys remember Telnet?
Did you have to have coal to fuel the engine?
Yes, you did. I remember dialing in, as in you had to type in a phone number.
Oh my God.
And that was on Telnet. And so, yeah, when there were actually first started being like websites that you could search on a search engine, that was probably 96 maybe, 95, 96, around then. And I would go and find these websites and just reading people's blogs, back then I guess they weren't blogs, they were GeoCities websites and homepages and stuff like that, but just navigating between the hit counters and the dancing gifs of sparkles, reading what other people wrote was so meaningful to me. You know, coming across websites like just with people's thoughts about their own experience kind of was just this like rich treasure trove. Like I was this battery who had just finally been connected to power. And just was able to just soak in all this information that I before had not really even known existed. And just to discover like how many other people were feeling like this, how their lives were going, was so meaningful. And so I would hope that, you know, write down your thoughts, because your thoughts may be super important to someone in the future.
To someone else, yes. Get your thoughts out there, even if they're disorganized or unfocused or leap from topic to topic. Get this down, because somebody might need to read that.
Yeah. And seek out others, because you are probably not alone. You're almost certainly not alone.
And once you find them, that's it. It doesn't solve your problem, but you've got a name.
You've got a name, and you've got a community, and you've got someone you can talk to about this.
And if there are changes you need to make, there's a path. Or you can find it.
Yeah. At least others of your kind can help you find that path.
And you know, both of us, we're introverts, we're misanthropes, we don't like people, but we can absolutely 100% see the value and importance of finding a community of people like you, especially if you feel very alone for some reason.
Yeah. So, yeah, keep seeking. I would say that to everyone. Keep seeking and talk to other people. Share your thoughts. We love to hear your thoughts.
Yes, we do. Write to us. Questions at genderrebels.com. Well, thanks, Faith. That's helpful.
Well, good. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this Gender Rebels philosophy lesson. If you have philosophical questions about gender and trans stuff that you would like to share with us, please send them.
Get in touch. We would love to hear them.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right, everybody.
Bye.
If you've enjoyed this episode and want to help us keep making more great content, go to patreon.com/genderrebels.
We have many different levels of support and lots of great rewards,
including drinks with the Gender Rebels at Stonewall.
Please leave a 5-star review on iTunes. That makes it easier for other people to find us.
And send your questions to questions@genderrebels.com. Or find us on Twitter @TheGenderRebels.
Music for The Gender Rebels is by Jasper the Colossal. Follow the link down below or download them on iTunes today.
And for all our episodes, visit GenderRebels.com.
The Gender Rebels is a Comeback Sync production, copyright 2018. All rights reserved.
And to all you Gender Rebels out there, keep rebelling.
Bye.
Bye.
There's one, I listened to one and I just didn't like it very much.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's not for everyone.
No.
You don't have to listen to
It is for everyone. Gender Rebels is the best podcast ever. All right? Ever. Ever. Name a better podcast. Oh, you can't. You can't.
Number one.
Number one in the world. We're actually number 0. We're like one better than one.
Yes.
So numbers work.
It's like the absence of numbers.